Hello and welcome to the presentation done by me. Today, we're going to discuss a chapter which is the analysis of a text from a textbook of translation by Peter Newmark. As an introduction, the act of translating, what is translating? Is often known as interlingual or intralingual translation. Is the creation of texts. Translators like us strive to provide their audience the same experience they would have had by reading the original content in that language. When working on a project, for instance, a professional translator should constantly be mindful of context and culture. But no matter how knowledgeable you are in these areas, you as a translator will never be able to accurately represent the meaning of any one word or phrase. And this can result in difficult circumstances for both translators and customers, which are the audience. But it also serves a crucial reminder that there are multiple paths to success in every circumstance. In this chapter, Newmark says that in addition to the obvious ones of interpersonal communication and documentation, there are four basic major functions of language, which are the informative, expressive, directive, and emphatic. Now, the purpose of language is the subject of the text. According to Newmark, there are four other primary purposes of language, as we mentioned, in addition to the apparent ones of interpersonal communication and documentation, which are the informational, expressive, directive, and emphatic. Now, what is the informative speech? It is intended to educate the audience, both expressing one's own feelings and other people's feeling as well, can be comprehended by others. For instance, being emphatic. Directives explain what to do or how to act to someone. For instance, being directive. Emphatic speech is speech that serves no purpose other than to build relationships between speakers, such as saying, "Hello, how are you? Have you met before?" or "Bye-bye." So we will remember each other when we next encounter one another. Now, to work out the intention of your text as a translator, you have to inquire about the author's intentions and audience. Now, we determine the author's intention by determining who authored it and why they did so in order to attain particular goals. For instance, if you are translating a piece of North Korean educational reform, it's possible that it's written for a wide readership that includes both instructors and students as well. Or it maybe was intended for other educational-related professions like journalists or politicians who could find it useful to understand more about how these changes are being implemented in classrooms all around North Korea. The response will depend on the context we are evaluating, but there are three critical elements that could assist us in determining whether or not such an interpretation makes sense. Okay, now, does the source text make an indication of the audience it is writing for? If so, we can proceed with any remaining steps toward completion, knowing where our translation needs more research. For example, reading up on current events related directly back into our target language is the only purpose of this message to let us know who wrote this piece. Do additional characters, for instance, make a significant appearance in each chapter, each paragraph, etc.? If so, perhaps something significant is going on here behind the scenes. Who knows? Translations are structured similarly to source writings and adhere to the same organizational rules as those texts, as Newmark says. What about the readership? The readership should be a priority for translators. Without them, nothing makes sense. Who are we translating for? When translating widely, read popular materials or works with a narrower audience, such specialized texts, they should bear this in mind. So if you give a student a scientific research, the student may not understand the words or phrases or the terminology that is being used in such texts. So we should bear in mind the level of the audience. And to translate well, the translator must be knowledgeable about stylistic scales. He or she, the translator, should be particularly aware of literary methods utilized by authors, such metaphors and similes. Now, what about literature? The way the literature approaches its subject matter and how it conveys its perspective towards it can vary. If you are writing about a historical occurrence that occurred centuries ago, for instance, you might employ vocabulary that seems antiquated or even barbarous. However, if your novel is set in contemporary New York City or Paris, where English is widely used, you can use more up-to-date terminology. This will prevent your readers from becoming sidetracked by archaic vocabulary or incorrect grammar rules and keep their attention on what is happening, which may no longer apply. So we should bear in mind and be aware of the time and the period, because we cannot use old archaic words in this era, because most of the people won't understand the word's meaning or the meaning behind the word. What about the personal style? The personal style and educational level influence writing quality in some ways. For instance, conversational writing typically uses simple grammar and language. No need to it to be complex. Quality is also impacted by writing genre conventions. In writing journalism, there are conventions that are applied to all writers, regardless of their level of experience. Spelling throughout articles or stories should be consistent, as for instance, the word it's and it is, instead of being arbitrary. Capitalization should denote a title, for instance, The Avengers, rather than being random, The Avengers. We can put it anywhere in the sentence. The majority of words don't require any punctuation before them, including dashes used as colons between sentences. Some words like I will, I'll, may require an apostrophe. We are coming to the end. So in conclusion, personal style and educational level both play a role in writing quality. For instance, conversational writing typically uses simple grammar and language, as we mentioned before. So in principle, a translational analysis of the SL text based on its comprehension is the first stage of translation and the basis of the useful discipline of translation criticism. Such analysis is, I think, an appropriate training for translators, since by underlining the appropriate words, they will show they are aware of difficulties they might otherwise have missed. Thus, you relate translation theory, its practice. Thank you for listening, and I want to thank Dr. Mohammed Abidat for all his efforts. Thank you for listening. I wish you a great day. It was Hamza. Thank you once again.